Well, that was supposed to be a little bit better mixed there, but it was all for you, Greg.
I know.
From
I
your
appreciate
podcast
it.
this morning, because you said you wanted the indictment song, and that was your indictment song from like what 1950 something. I don't know. You're dating yourself.
I think it's early 60s. I don't know. That's a
It's-
great song. I thought
it
the
is.
law one, just the economy of language in the storytelling of that song is just, it
I
doesn't
love
get
it.
better, man.
I love it.
It
And now
doesn't
we have
get
it
better.
on my little touchpad here. We can play it whenever we want to celebrate indictment. Hi, Jennifer Taub. Am I saying your name correctly? I'm sorry if I'm not, because it's the first time we're getting to see each other. How are you?
I am good, and I'll accept any pronunciation of
Oh,
my
wow.
last name, so that works.
But what is the correct one, just so we know?
Well, I mean, I guess I say Taub, but I
okay.
think originally it might have been Taub when it was
Okay.
German, but then it had an E at the end of it. Who knows?
I'll go with Jennifer. How's that? Make it easy for
That's
us.
good.
We're
Thanks,
so
Devin.
glad you're on the show tonight, because there's all sorts of talks of indictment, and there's all sorts of talks about the Supreme Court messing up our Constitution and our elections. And you're the person who seems to know a lot about these things, because you are, in fact, the author of Big Dirty Money. And there's the cover, The Shocking Injustice and Unseen Cost of White-Collar Crime. Now, you've been a guest on Greg's show before, so I know you guys have spoken in the past, but I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts about the indictment as it was handed down to Mr. Weisselberg last night or yesterday afternoon?
I'm so glad you asked that, and I'm going to rephrase your question, because
Okay.
that's what I do.
You're the professor.
You know that the indictment, the first defendant listed was the Trump Corporation, and the other second defendant listed was the Trump Payroll Corp.
Mhm.
Weisselberg was third, and I know we all like to call it the Weisselberg indictment. That's kind of what we do, but really this was the Trump business indictment. And I think it's a baby step. I mean, I think a lot of people would have liked to see more in this indictment, no doubt. Cy Vance would have liked to have more here, but I actually think this is a tremendously monumental moment. We have a former president of the United States, a guy who for his entire adult life got away with all kinds of corrupt shenanigans, settled so many matters with regulators civilly, or his businesses did, and never was criminally charged, right? So now we have Trump's business being criminally charged. This is huge. And these are not minor offenses. We're talking about a conspiracy charge against the businesses, and also a tax fraud charge and falsifying business records against the business in another one. The only types of charges that the Trump's businesses did not get hit with, that Weisselberg did, was larceny.
Right.
Because Trump's businesses didn't actually, it was a different piece about Weisselberg himself, stealing money. But this was a really tremendous indictment, and I think, unfortunately, a lot of people bought into the spin put out by the defense lawyers that this was, a fringe benefit case. No, this is a tax fraud case. This is an, under the table, off the books scheme, a conspiracy that went on since 2005. This is, as they say, a big effing deal.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the Trump organization and the lawyers, they were trying to suggest this is just about, a company car, but it's not just about a company car. I made a slide to show everyone exactly why it's not just about a company car. It involved two Mercedes-Benz.
Two cars.
Yeah, really nice ones too. This luxury apartment at one of the better Trump apartment buildings. I mean, these guys were living large, not just on the company's dime, but also on the taxpayer's dime, which I think the people are forgetting to realize, is that this is really taxpayer money that that was being given to Mr. Weisselberg and his wife and his children and grandchildren and who have you.
Yeah, I mean, he's a tax cheat, and he was orchestrating this for his own personal benefit and the benefit of the business. And some people wonder, what would possibly be in it for a corporation to do this? You can see why someone might want under the table things like, two Mercedes-Benz, a luxury apartment you don't have to pay for, right? It's just paid for you, and you don't even have to pay taxes on it. We can see why Weisselberg would have wanted that. But and the other executives at Trump Organization who benefited from this unlawful scheme. But what's in it for a business? And there are a lot of things. I think the two main things that are in it for the business is it's a way of paying an employee getting more, bang for the buck, right? And I use an example in the piece that you just put up there in Washington Monthly. What I mean by that is if you just imagine someone who makes $100,000 as a regular salary in New York, let's say, they really deserved, or the company wanted to actually, if you want to actually pay them $200,000. Well, that extra $100,000, you only get $72,000 by the time all the payroll tax and everything is right. And then if you were Weisselberg, you take that $72,000 and you pay some rent, you pay for the private school tuition, you pay the leases on the Mercedes, yada yada, all the stuff you do with it. It only goes as far as the $72,000. But if the Trump organization, and it also, the Trump organization had to give up $100,000, right, just so you could have $72,000 worth of compensation.
Right.
If, however, it's done like this, off the books, then the business only has to part with $72,000 of money by paying your expenses, right?
Right.
It's illegal, but my point is, it's because Donald Trump isn't just a cheat; he's a cheapskate.
Right.
So we know this is obviously part of the attraction. He gets his dollars to go farther. He doesn't have to raise the salaries as much as it comes out of his own personal pocketbook. This is just one of the many.
And then he writes it off, right? Then he writes it off.
Right. I mean, you write off. You don't write it off as as compensation, but you write it off as a business expense, right? None of this is lawful as it was structured, but this is just an example. It's a way of Trump to. So that's the main thing, right? Being a cheap.
Oh, he didn't like that. So you got frozen there. I'm not sure why. Jennifer, we can't, let me just press some buttons and see if they improve. There, you're back. I think you're back.
Okay. Good. The other thing, so first is that he's just cheap and he wants his dollars to go farther, even if it breaks the law. The second thing is, it's kind of a mob thing. If you want an underling to do something illegal for you, they could rat you out, right? So you get them to do something unlawful. So you have something to hold over their head. Right. I have never been a mob boss, but I've studied them enough. I mean, white-collar criminals. So you kind of know their tactics.
Right. Greg's been a mob boss, haven't you, Greg? I mean,
several times. Past lives. I gave it up, Zev. I gave it up to come on your show.
Oh, that's good.
I should add, Jen's book is all about this kind of thing and is really great. If anybody hasn't read it, I highly recommend reading it because it does help you wrap your mind around what so-called white collar crime is, what money laundering is, and why it's harmful to society. So
can I just add this other plug for the book? You've got the beautiful green cover there, the paperback with a new white cover. I think the guy has a red tie. Right. It's coming out in September and it has a new subtitle. Okay. It's called it's Big Dirty Money, and the new subtitle is Making White Collar Criminals Pay. And it's got a new introduction.
Well timed.
Yeah. So
I mean, we're talking about $1 trillion of taxes that aren't recovered every year. I mean, that's a lot of money that could really go a long way to helping us through some problems in this society. And these guys in these, ivory towers doing these kind of schemes, as Mr. Trump and Mr. Weisselberg did, or allegedly did. Boy, I mean, that's how we lose $1 trillion every year. That could be going to better health and better schooling and better streets and better roads and better whatever you want to spend that money on. It's a pretty significant deal.
In fact, since you said "oi," and since I believe Weisselberg is a member of my tribe, I should say he's a Shonda, right? I mean, a little Yiddish here. For those who don't know, a Shonda means a shame. He's he's shaming my people. I happen to be Jewish. And at any rate, this is. It's one, he deprived taxing authorities of about $1 million, including from not declaring income that we talked about, pretending that he didn't live in New York, and getting refunds that he wasn't entitled to, right? So it's $1 million. And in the scheme of things, you might think that's not a lot. I mean, I think that's a lot, right? But in the scheme of this, $1 trillion tax gap, it's a small amount. But $1 million here, $1 million there. I mentioned this in the piece. Charles Redding, who's the current IRS commissioner, who's a carryover from the Trump era, admitted under oath recently in 2021 that, this tax gap is now at nearly 1 million. And that is the amount of taxes a year that the government IRS believes it should be collecting that it isn't. And in addition, what was so shocking about his testimony is he admitted it's mostly due to tax cheats, right? Mm-hmm. And he said this thing that I find really funny. He said, we're outgunned. And in some ways that's true. And because the IRS has had a huge amount of its budget, gutted. Jesse Eisinger and others write about this at ProPublica, and they have fewer staff. But in this case, as I said in the piece in Washington Monthly, he's not outgunned. I mean, sometimes you need guns, but right now you just need a good pair of reading glasses. Where's the IRS right now?
Right.
Come on.
The rich people
What's
don't
the
pay
math?
taxes. Good.
We pay, like, for every dollar we pay and invest in the IRS, we get back what, $6, $7? It's one of the things that pays for itself, and yet we're slashing the budget for some reason. Gee, I wonder why.
Well, it's kind of like this. One of the big things Trump put through that the Republicans really wanted was that massive tax cut for the wealthy that was supposed to pay for itself, right? And when I wrote Big Dirty Money, it kind of spanned before and after the pandemic. And even before the pandemic hit, it was clear that it wasn't going to pay for itself. So there's two ways that the wealthy get tax cuts, right? And the government allows it. One is they get the laws changed that are already created, and two, the existing laws create all kinds of special loopholes for the very powerful, like hedge fund operators and so on. And the third way they lower the taxes is by not paying them. And the government just looks the other way. And, this is where, I had this cringing, I don't even know, I asked a friend who's German and she gave me the word for it, like the opposite of Schadenfreude. I had this cringy feeling that I was agreeing. I was partially in agreement with something the Trump Organization lawyer, Alan Ferfurtis, I think that's his name, said yesterday in a press conference about, how the tax laws, aren't being enforced. Actually, the German word, I got to tell you, I might be pronouncing it wrong. Apparently, it's Gluckschmerz. Anyway, I'm going to look it up and I'm going to write something about it. But I had this feeling because, it's a little bit true, right? You sit there and you think, why are the taxing authorities not going after ordinary wealthy people? And I think the reality is that third part, because one way you achieve tax cuts is by going light on enforcement on the super wealthy. And I know it's hard to follow offshore accounts and all this other stuff, but I have a feeling that this isn't the only time when something falls right in front of the IRS or the DOJ and they just sort of shrug.
Didn't Leona Helmsley say, only the poor people or only the little people pay taxes? I mean, surely that must be the thinking that goes on in these places, that, Donald Trump probably just resents the idea. I've met some famous, well-known rich people who just resent the idea of paying taxes. They just don't feel like it should be their thing to do. They just don't feel like they're part of that club. They think it belongs to other people. And that seems to be mentality.
Come on. His father didn't build a fortune just so Donald Trump could pay taxes on his father's money.
Exactly.
Come on.
I mean, you remember that New York Times story that was so tremendously important that just kind of thudded, the $400 million worth of taxes they didn't pay over those years. Suzanne Craig, her initial one, and then there were follow-ups. But this is the part that I agreed with the lawyer, which is a lot of this kind of stuff gets settled civilly. The difference in Donald Trump's case is when they asked to see the records, they stonewalled and so on. And also there's no requirement that the government settle these cases civilly when you've been, brazenly scheming to avoid paying taxes. But the reality is, and this is kind of one of the main themes of my work in Big Dirty Money, is that, that cheating actually pays. Elite cheaters prosper. And, the thing that makes me enraged when I think about it is the comparison. If you look at the white, super wealthy and well-connected, and they can whine and people sympathize with them because, no one ever comes after people. You heard this sort of picked up in the press. And then you look at someone like Eric Garner. When he was selling loose cigarettes in New York, on a street in New York City, that's tax evasion. What happened to him? And it was perfectly okay to, he had a small time hustle, kind of arbitrage, and he was depriving New York City and state of, a few dollars a pack for cigarettes,
Good point.
And what do? They can physically restrain and kill. Now, it was not lawful to kill him, but those police officers, no one went to jail for that, right? We really have two Americas, and, Trump is just, with this expression, I don't know if you've heard of this ever, Greg, but this is an expression that accountants sometimes tell wealthy clients, which is like wealthy clowns, wealthy clients. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Have you heard that before?
think I have actually
Yeah.
seen it the way. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, and now Trump's lawyers are complaining that he's getting slaughtered. Well, he's ruining the game for everyone else by
Right.
saying the quiet part out loud and by going over the top, right? But you notice the other thing I saw that thing that I was cringing is when Don Trump Jr. and the lawyer for Trump organization was saying, how come Cy Vance is charging me? How about all those bankers
Right.
in
right.
his jurisdiction?
You know what?
And I'm
Here's
like,
that very clip.
oh,
I'm going to play that clip, and then we can talk
good,
about it.
good.
Here we go.
Well, these are employment perks. These are a corporate car, which everybody has. I guarantee you there's people on this network that have corporate cars. I guarantee you there's people in every company in the country that have corporate vehicles. This is what they're going after. This isn't a criminal matter. This is, it's really interesting, Raymond. After the financial crisis, right, they didn't go after a single person on Wall Street, despite the fact that these people were literally, they took down the U.S. economy, but they'll go after somebody after fringe employment benefits? Is that really what the DA is focused on, is little girls are getting shot in the middle of Times Square? They'll go after a corporate vehicle and a corporate apartment? Give me a break. And honestly, I have to say, the media has actually been very fair about this. The New York Times, so many of the different news outlets, they've literally said this isn't criminal. This isn't worth 40, 50 investigators and a district attorney's office.
This would normally be a civil complaint.
Jeez, you even get the Fox News anchor helping him out there.
So my apologies. It was Eric.
Yes,
it was Eric, not Don Jr. Sorry, Eric. Sorry.
Which is Greg's number one scapegoat for this whole thing. Greg believes that Eric Prince. Sorry,
Prince. You've got Eric Prince in the brand. I said
Eric
that
Trump will be the one
Trump,
who goes down for all of this.
He's born to be the fall guy, but like his defense is so that the way that they're sort of spinning this. Jen, you said at the top about it's the Weisselberg indictment, and no, it's not. It's about the entire company. So one of two things are true. Either Weisselberg acted alone and did all these horrible things on his own, and nobody there had any idea. It was just him. For 15 fucking years, none of these morons figured it out, right? It's not a big company, Trump Org. It's like, what, a dozen people? And the guy's doing all this shenanigans, and these wonderful math geniuses haven't figured this out. That's one thing that it could be, one possibility. And the other possibility is that they're all in on it, and of course they know. So I'm going to go with B.
No one's denying it. I don't think we've heard Don Jr. deny it.
Good.
I don't think Eric Trump denied it. I mean, it's just there's no deny. No one. I think even John Senior is denying it. I think ultimately everyone's basically saying this really did happen. It's not helping Weisselberg, I'm sure, in court. I'm sure they'd like him to stop talking, but they seem to agree that this is going to be the case. So.
I have to share this thing. My former, it's a little bright, sorry. My former con law professor, Larry Tribe, tweeted out something from Bloomberg. It must be Tim O'Brien, I'm guessing, if I click through. So yesterday, Tim O'Brien, have you seen this thing that Larry tweeted out? So he said, in his libel suit against Tim O'Brien, quote, the former president testified under oath that he and Weisselberg routinely worked jointly to prepare summaries they shared with banks that were trying to assess Trump's financial wherewithal.
Right.
I mean,
this builds also into the next, if the indictment is to be believed, is that there's no more clips. It's just that there's more coming according to this indictment or according to the prosecutors. The next thing they say is the target is Donald Trump himself, and this leads into his sort of wrongly evaluating all these properties that he has. This, I don't remember the name of it. Was it Silver Springs or whatever it is?
Yes.
So he, that thing, he wrongly estimated the value of that on his tax returns, and this is probably going to be where he gets targeted by prosecutors next. Is that your understanding of where they're going next?
I hope so. Right. I mean, I think the hard part is, I think that Vance doesn't yet have enough evidence to give to the grand jury to get the indictment he wants on that. I think they've got to get through millions of pages of paperwork, and ideally they get Weisselberg or someone else, to flip, because that would make the case.
I mean, Weisselberg's got no reason to real flip. I mean, maybe just.
But the other guy flipped, right? Didn't the other guy testify before the grand jury?
Calamari, I think Calamari.
No, the other guy.
Oh, there's another guy. Sorry.
What's his name? I can't remember his name or what he did. He's
O'Malley?
he's a subordinate to Weisselberg.
Is it
He's
O'Malley
already
or
testified before something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he testified before the grand jury already and has not been charged, leading some to speculate that he is the one who has flipped, and then blah blah blah. And Jen, you made a good point in the piece that you wrote in what is it, Washington Monthly? Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Which is that it may be that by doing this slowly and indicting Weisselberg first, they're sort of preparing the grand jury for the idea that they're going to eventually indict, the former president of the United States, even though he was always a mobster and happened to be president of the United States at the tail end of his career. He still is the president of the United States. So it's hard maybe to get a grand jury used to that idea. And I think that's interesting.
Well, I have a friend who
even in the
so
context of the media. Go ahead.
I think, I want to fine tune that, because the reason why I came up with that theory was because one of the pundits I heard said, well, why would you add the Trump organizations now when you don't have Trump himself? Usually the corporations go last. So it's not as much about why because they indicted Weisselberg, it seems to me, because they wanted to put pressure on him to flip. They didn't have to put the Trump organizations. They could have called them unidentified, organization one, right? They could have done that. I do think so I think it's a big psychological hurdle. If I were a member of a grand jury, it would feel really momentous, and I feel very anxious about indicting Trump. And I don't like Trump, right? But I'm just telling you, it seems like a big deal. But his corporation is a first step. Boom, they're already in. It won't be so hard to add Trump. And he's in this indictment, right? People said, oh, he won't even be mentioned. He's mentioned in the indictment in a very sly way. And you can just sort of see the puzzle piece that Cy Vance needs from Weisselberg.
So you also said, sorry, do you want to finish that?
Go ahead.
Sorry. As you also said something about Letitia James having the authority now to dissolve the corporation. I want to hear about that after this break. Now that summer is almost here and COVID is almost gone, this may be a good time to get some things off your to-do list, like maybe getting life insurance. My mom is really good with finances, and she's always telling me, what about life insurance? It's so important. And I can tell you that Policy Genius is a great place to get life insurance, because you can compare quotes from over a dozen top insurers all in one place. Why compare? Well, you can save as much as 50% or more of life insurance by comparing those quotes, and you could save $1,300 or more per year on life insurance by using Policy Genius to compare those policies for you. The licensed experts at Policy Genius work for you, not the insurance companies, so you can trust them to help you navigate every step of the shopping and buying process. That kind of service has earned Policy Genius a 5-star rating across thousands of reviews on Trustpilot and Google. This is how it works. Getting started is really easy. First, you head to policygenius.com, and in minutes, you can work out how much life insurance coverage you need and compare personalized quotes to find your best price. When you're ready to apply, the Policy Genius team will handle all the paperwork and scheduling for you. Policy Genius never sells your information to other companies, and that means you don't have to worry about your privacy, and they don't add extra fees. Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com to get started right now. Policy Genius. When it comes to insurance, it's nice to get it right. Now that's it is nice to get it right. And we should also mention why LB is not here. She's lost her voice. And a lot of people are asking on Twitter why she couldn't be on the show tonight. And she has she's got laryngitis, a pretty serious case of it. So she'll be on when she can talk again, hopefully next week. Jen, you were going to answer this question about Letitia James having the authority now to dissolve the Trump organization. I'd love to hear how she could do that.
So under so the Trump, you and I are using the Trump organization in a kind of blanket sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Trump organization isn't a thing; it's the trade name that the entire sort of empire of Trump's businesses kind of fall under. But there is the two corporations named in this indictment. The main one, the Trump Corporation, is the one where he and his kids worked, right? And then there's this Trump Payroll Corporation. Then there's all these LLCs and all these other sort of divisions, some of that which are, in these different pieces. At any rate, as folks may or may not know, to be a corporation or a limited liability company in the United States, you need to be given life by a particular state, right? So these corporations, the Trump Corporation, the main corporate entity, is organized under the laws of New York. And what the state giveth, the state can taketh away. That's not exactly the language of the law. So there is a provision in the New York corporation law that allows to dissolve a nonprofit corporation, for example, or a for-profit. We have seen the Trump's nominal charitable organization, the Donald J. Trump Foundation, or I think that's what it's called. It was dissolved by the acting attorney general before James came in. And when she came in, I think she required them, well, it was dissolved because the AG went to court, and a court ordered its dissolution. And then when James was elected and took office, then that Trump himself in 2019, while he was president, we may have forgotten this, but he was required to pay out of his own pocket $2 million to 8 different charities because he had cheated so many, charities. Okay. I'm not sure if he's actually done that, but at any rate, that's what he was required to do. So similarly, Tish James could dissolve the Trump Corporation, any of the organizations that are organized under New York law, and the power. It's sometimes we call it. I teach corporation law, and we sometimes call this the corporate death penalty. You can do this, but it's under extreme circumstances. You've got to go to a court and say that this business is operating. Is basically a fraudulent enterprise, and that could happen. And I think Jed Sugarman, who's a law professor at Fordham University, as well as Ron Fine, who is a legal director of Free Speech for People. I'm on the board of Free Speech for People. They wrote an op-ed describing this. I linked to in the piece. And they asked Tish James to do this. Now, Jed retweeted this today, and he mentioned that he thinks the order of things should be, if these 2 Trump corporations are actually convicted, that would be the step 1, and step 2 would be the civil action to ask a judge to dissolve it. I think that's what I mean by the worst is yet to come for Trump.
Right, absolutely. So, the premise of this whole show is who's next in this lineup of 4 people that you see in front of you here. Who's in most jeopardy? Let me ask it that way. As you look at all 4 of these,
are you asking me, or are you asking?
I'm asking you, Jen. But I'll ask. I think I know what Greg's thoughts on this are, but I'm asking.
No, I just real quick. Lots of people commenting. Yeah. The guy's name is McConney. That's the controller's name. McConney. So thank you everybody for
really appreciate it.
It was like 17 people said McConney. It was like in a row of things. Very smart. Anyway, okay.
This is why people are good.
I know. We have a very, very smart audience.
Very, very smart. Don't make any mistakes in this show. So you got your
who's next?
Who's next? Wow. Well, see, I'm gonna buy myself some time by rephrasing the question, which is, I really enjoyed Mary Trump, Donald Denise's commentary last night on, I think, was she on Hayes or Maddow or one of those? Maddow. And she said she thought her cousins might flip faster than Weisselberg, but I thought that's interesting.
That might really happen. That might really happen.
Oh, I totally agree.
It's hard to. I think as much as Ivanka might be implicated in some of the, taking, not declaring taxes on income that was really more of a gift. This whole consulting thing. Yeah. She was not. She was not an executive recently in the last 5-year window, which is a statute of limitations. Now, see, what's confusing about this is this stuff went on, as you know, from 2005 until the present. But just because a scheme went on, was originated then, doesn't mean they can charge all this stuff all the way back, right? That's just a description of stuff. And so I think, Eric, Don Jr., and Senior, of them, it's tough. I mean, you could just do them all at once. I think first, we might have a superseding indictment that adds charges against the Trump business, right? Look, and I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it might be fun to indict both boys and see who flips first. But I just don't know. I think
they're both beneficiaries of the scheme, and they're also participants in the scheme. Presumably, presumably they knew this was going on. They've been signing off these checks because they're executive vice presidents, but they've also been beneficiaries of pretty much the same kind of stuff, right? So
look, if they have evidence, if they have evidence that they were getting cars and private school just like Weisselberg, you would really have to charge them both at the same time. I wouldn't play games with a grand jury.
Right.
So I think it's going to be the two boys together, and then Trump, unless Weisselberg flips or this other guy, what is his last name again?
McConney.
McConney. I don't know how much McConney knows. I mean, Trump's always been really smart about not putting anything in writing, not having his own email, right?
But apparently he kept a log of all of this. For many years, he kept some sort of log of all of Weisselberg's, not take-home pay that he was getting in fringe
right,
benefits.
but the piece they're missing, when I alluded to for getting Trump, I mean, I think it's going to be the boys first.
Yeah.
But what you need, if you want to show that there was this conspiracy, that he was part of the scheme, that's the key thing. Once you show he's part of the scheme, then any of these crimes that fall under that conspiracy, he could be tagged for. But you have to have someone who has credible evidence that Trump agreed to this, not just knew about it. We know he knew about it, but he was part of the agreement. And I mean, I believe you could probably charge him now because I think there's probable cause, but I think Cy Vance wants hard evidence. You don't want to, you really do want a piece of paper or a witness to say, I remember on this date when he said, let's do it. Yes, I'm so glad we agreed to do this, or something. He wouldn't say it like that, but they need something like that.
Now, how much of this is just, I mean, I'll just take the devil's advocate side of here. This really is a targeted court case, even from anyone's perspective. This is not the kind of thing that they're charging everybody who does the same thing in New York City, because this happens presumably a fair amount.
Yeah, but they don't charge everybody who's snorting cocaine on a glass table in the living room. Right. But if you set up a table on Fifth Avenue and fucking live tweet it, fuck yourself. Am I allowed to say that?
You just did. Amazing. I love it.
I mean, you can't just do shit like that and say, well, whatever.
That's fantastic. You just stole the show. That's brilliant. Okay. So, yes. Okay. Point taken. So there we don't discuss that anymore. By the way, Cy Vance is not going to be around anymore. This guy's going to be in charge now. Alvin Bragg, probably, who's going to be the new DA. That'll change dynamics as well. And presumably this is not going to be done by the time Cy goes. And so Mr. Trump's got a new opponent to try and tackle there in Alvin Bragg. I don't know very much about him, but he's apparently going to be the new DA.
Well, what makes me a little
somebody
nervous.
Was saying is really good.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I forget who on Twitter was singing his praises. Do you remember? I can't remember who it was, but somebody was saying that he's really good.
Was it Zephyr? Teach Out, maybe?
No, not Zephyr.
I don't know.
No.
Do you know him?
I like that you refer to Don Jr. and Eric as the boys. I think that's really funny.
Well, the better thing, crotch goblin is the expression that Allison Gill used, which is just.
Anything will do.
Allison's good at those.
Zev, you didn't ask me who I thought was next.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who do you think is next, Greg?
I think clearly the answer, Zev, is Hunter Biden. I mean, all of the double books are on Hunter Biden's laptop.
Of course.
Why hasn't he been charged, Zev? Come on.
Right. As soon as they're finished the Arizona thing, the audit, then they're going to get into Hunter. It's clearly all there. No problem. It's true.
Well,
I
if you
just
want
hear
me to be
Hunter's
snarky,
name come up.
let me ask you this question, Zev, you and Greg. Yeah. Who do you think is going to be charged first by the DOJ for anything, whether it's tax evasion or what have you? Donald Trump or Alan Weisselberg? So that's one group, the Trump cabal, or the journalists who leaked to ProPublica the information about the billionaires. Sorry, I'm just trying to make you angry.
I am, you got me there because I mean, clearly, doesn't Merrick Garland have to act on this case as well, doesn't he? Because these are federal dollars that are being stolen, right, by the Trump organization. Shouldn't he be jumping in on this case and federally charging this group of co-conspirators here for the same thing? Because, they're even in their state allegations, they're saying that it's federal tax dollars that have been stolen. It doesn't seem like they're that eagerly jumping into this, which is, goes to the point.
Maybe they're waiting to see what happens with the state. I mean, it makes
for what? How much time do we have to wait for Merrick Garland to wake up? I mean, I just find it so frustrating that we're sitting here day after day after day and nothing seems to happen. And as you point out, all these other things seem to happen.
the thing is, he's a really nice man. I think he's utterly brilliant. He's done some great things because I criticize him, and some people think I don't think he's done good things. I think his cases, his litigation on voting rights in Georgia, I think his ending the federal death penalty that Trump started. This is all great, but come on, man, scooping ice cream for employees. Go back to work and indict Trump. I mean, for fuck's sake, I'm sorry.
He has no intention. He has no intention of indicting Trump at all.
Keep the ice cream.
There's not even like a whiff of it in the air.
But this is not okay.
Yeah.
We had, 1,000 former federal prosecutors who wrote a letter complaining about Bill Barr because he covered up the Mueller report. Well, guess what, everybody? It's not covered anymore.
Yeah.
It's out there. And where is the energy for saying the same thing about Garland? I mean, do I have a screw loose in my brain that I'm trying to hold Democrats to the same standards as Republicans? I mean, supposedly Garland is saying, well, I don't want to be, this is his idea. We don't, we're not going to focus on political parties, but yeah, neither am I. But I'm the bad guy for calling him out all the time.
I mean, he'll be president again soon if we don't indict him. We'll do something around this. I mean, there's no attempt to stop the leadership of this insurrection, as far as I can tell. Still none. Maybe behind the scenes something's happening now that some of them are flipping, but there is nothing going on that makes you feel like Trump will ever be indicted, or any of the close people around him will ever be indicted on a federal level for any of the things they've done, including coronavirus, including the insurrection, including all these other things which normally would be serious offenses. I mean, normally, I don't know we haven't had it before, so you wouldn't know what the equivalent would be. But
monetizing the pandemic response and sabotaging it and killing 600,000 Americans to try to win the election is bad. You're saying
it's bad. It turns out to be quite bad, and no one's ever going to get thrown in jail for that. It doesn't look like there's an impetus to do that at the DOJ, and I don't get the point behind arresting all these 550 other insurrectionists if you're not going to go up the chain, if you're not going to go up the ladder. And
we don't know that part. We don't know yet. We don't know that they are. If they weren't arresting anybody there, I would be nervous. We have to look when we look at Merrick Garland. I think we really have to piece it out a little bit. Okay, and anyone who's watched the show knows my opinion of the guy. Okay, I'm not hiding it in any way. They have arrested people. They are moving up the chain. This looks to me like one of those cases where they're getting, what did they arrest? 500 people so far?
More than 500.
And they're moving up the chain. It takes time. It's been 6 months. That feels like an eternity, but in a case of this magnitude and this size, it's really not that much time. Would I rather they just hurry the fuck up and stop scooping ice cream? Of course. But I think my understanding is this is how long this shit takes. Watergate took, a year and a half after the break-in before. So it's going to take time for that. It's the other stuff that's the problem. I think the problem with Garland, in my view, is that he doesn't seem to quite grasp the magnitude of what's going on in the country. I think he's been in the goddamn bench for so long, his head's up his ass. He comes out at these press conferences, which I have been calling for, and LB has been calling for since the beginning. Talk to us. We can't have another goddamn Mueller underground in the fucking submarine that we're not allowed to say anything. We need to know what the fuck is going on. I don't need to know the exact details. I just need to know, are you going to charge this guy or not? What's going on? Are you investigating this, and this? Mueller gave you a 700-page indictment blueprint. Are you going to use it? Or are you going to put it in the executive toilet and use it to wipe your bony ass? We need to know. And the guy can't talk, okay? He's a terrible public speaker. For a guy that's been on the bench all this time, I can't believe how awful he is in front of a podium. I would argue we'd be better off having an actor who knows nothing about anything, who can just talk good, than this guy right now. But
I think training does that to lawyers, or also the system is self-selecting that if you have a very precise mind that's undistracted from building arguments and there's no bells and whistles, you will advance, I guess. Or I think that he should not be the spokesperson. He should know his lane. Like I said, he's brilliant. He knows the law. He can craft great opinions. He should have the way the president has a press secretary. That's who he should put out there.
Yeah.
But the obstruction of justice charges that you spoke about, I mean, how can those not be prosecuted? How could we go through all of this in the last few years and go through, Mueller and that impeachment process, and then land up with no charges by the Justice Department? It seems crazy. That was a blueprint.
Well, I'm concerned that his actual view about executive authority might be the same under Article 2, might be the same as what Barr's position was.
Well, how is he then
in which case,
Attorney General?
fire him then. Because he's fucking
what's the
useless.
point? What's the point?
It's
I mean, this
really
is
stupid.
Yeah.
It's just insane. You know,
he might be. I think you're right. I think you're right. I think they're very similar.
Yeah, I wouldn't have selected him myself. I think he's brilliant. I think he should be on the bench. And, there were other choices, but who knows? Maybe that's what Biden wanted.
Maybe that's exactly what Biden wanted, which is even scarier, considering we've now got a court, and then we should move to the Supreme Court decision yesterday, which was just, I don't know. It just feels like we're in the death knell of democracy, and no one seems to care. That judgment, and maybe I don't understand it enough. I don't even know it's not really called a judgment, is it? By the Supreme Court, there's another term for it, is it?
Decision.
Decision, sorry. I mean, that's please, thank you. It's getting to that time. So,
ask the law professor what it's called when the Supreme Court.
I give up.
I'm here whenever you need me. Zeb. You can just
Zeb,
on the show when
you
just text me. Just text me anytime. I'll answer those tough questions.
Just that I couldn't get the guy's name earlier, and now I can't get decision right. Jeez. I'm not even
I can't remember anything anymore.
So
my brain is mischievous. Yeah.
So what did you think of the SCOTUS thing yesterday that happened yesterday? I want to hear from you, Jen.
I mean, on a pure emotional level, it was depressing, though not surprising. But I guess, I have this weird Pollyanna side. Like if something's really terrible, I'm like, well, here's the good thing. And if something's really good, I have this like,
Bring it.
well, you're stupid. It's wrong. But here's the thing. The day before that terrible decision came down, which really strips away the, almost all the power behind the 1965 Voting Rights Act. The day before, there was a public meeting of Joe Biden's Commission on Supreme Court Reform. And I'm so glad it was 8 hours long. And I live tweeted. I mean, I was watching it online, live tweeted it, and heard so many amazing ideas, including court expansion, and so many really honest experts talk about what we could and should do, that I feel more energized for court reform after yesterday. So I'm depressed. It really feels like a punch in the gut for everybody who fought for voting rights. I mean, this goes back, as you know, the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which was re-upped 5 times after that. 1965, when it was passed, was a really transformational time in the country. We had Lyndon Johnson in office because JFK had been assassinated, and Johnson was able to make this happen because we had the civil rights movement. We had people like Martin Luther King and others who, John Lewis and everybody else who, shed blood to get people access to the ballot. And the key things that, and then let me just give the context, and then we have, 1968, they were trying to expand on civil rights legislation. And, that's our bookends when we have MLK murdered. And then a few months later, Bobby Kennedy. And that's how we get Nixon. I mean, so you have to look at and then Nixon is such a jerk that they pass campaign finance legislation. I see this all together because what the Roberts Court has done is those things that happened between 65 and 68, which were supposed to be giving African Americans in this country access to the ballot to make us a real democracy, right? Not just a promise of one, and to get money out of politics. That stuff that happened then, that was happening then, gets after Nixon, because it was when they passed the major campaign finance reform stuff. All of that Roberts took away. We've got
Everything.
Citizens United in 2010, various other decisions. And the key thing is this case yesterday, sorry, I'm being such an annoying law professor, but has to be looked at together with the 2013 Shelby County case, has to be looked at right beside this decision about Arizona. So for those, I mean, I know that your listeners know this, but just to reiterate, there are two sections of the Voting Rights Act that had these tools. There's Section 5 and there's Section 2. It was in 2013 when the Roberts Court looked around and said, oh, we don't need this anymore. The thing they thought they didn't need is in 1965, this law created the requirement that before a state changed its voting rights laws or ballot laws or election laws, if they were a state that had a history of discrimination, they had to get it approved first. It was called pre-clearance. 2013, Roberts and the other justices, conservatives, look around and go, hey, it's funny. We don't see any shenanigans anymore. And as I think whoever did, was it Ruth Bader Ginsburg who said, that's like somebody saying, I had an umbrella and I didn't get wet. Let's get rid of the umbrella. Right? It's that situation. And then yesterday, or was it yesterday, Thursday? Yeah. Yesterday, they eviscerated Section 2. Section 2 is the part that says, okay, forget about pre-clearance, that Congress forbid certain types of election laws in states that would discriminate against people on the basis of, for example, race and so on. And what they did to hurt it yesterday is they said, as it applied to this Arizona law, they said, it's okay if the things that Arizona does or other states do actually depress turnout for Black voters. That's perfectly fine, as long as no one sat around and said, we're doing this so Black people can't vote. But if they say things, we're doing this so that we continue to win elections, which is what they said in Arizona, it's fine. And so the two things that are perfectly okay now and will be okay in other states is for them to do things like not let people vote in a different precinct than where they're supposed to vote. That's a big problem because sometimes election officials will change precincts around. They could deliberately change the precinct location around or reorganize an area just to target African-American voters, right? You can also do things like forbid anyone from delivering a ballot. If I didn't have a car or I couldn't get to the polling place and I wanted to have someone, if I was sent an absentee ballot and they deliberately, let's say, didn't have enough polling places in my area, I couldn't give it to somebody else in Arizona.
Let's just call it what it is. It's a really racist decision. It's really awful.
Right.
And it's delivered by a court that's now, all in favor of big money. It's completely conservative, and he's turning the clock back on all of us into the dark ages. And I hate to rain on your, sunny disposition over there, or whatever, you're Pollyanna-ish. I don't think that we're going to see even the filibuster moved in the Senate. How are we going to get an expanded Supreme Court? We're just never going to see these things in the next year. So, we're running out of time, and I don't feel the groundswell of anger around this yet. I don't feel like, around Trump, there was this momentum of we just have to get rid of this guy because he's just so terrible. He's got to go. But there isn't this feeling of anger around what's happening to our country by the courts right now, by the Senate that's sort of waffling through whatever it is that they're trying to waffle through right now. And generally speaking, just a far more racist country, which is even seeming to accept an insurrectionist party in the House. I mean,
yeah, I
don't, it's like, boy, blood should be boiling by now, and they're not.
Greg, tell us why we have reason to hope, or tell us what we should be doing right now.
Okay, I have a couple of comments. First, even though the umbrella analogy was pretty good, the real analogy is it's like saying, wow, I've been using a condom this whole time, and my girlfriend hasn't gotten pregnant yet, so I guess I don't have to use the condom anymore. And that's a better analogy because we're all getting fucked. Okay, second, Zev, can you show us the picture of the Supreme Court, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Give me a second here.
This is the thing, Jen, that I think everybody needs to know that I don't think people realize is who sits on this court. It's insane that a country of 350 million people only has 9 people who are there for life, like they're goddamn Roman emperors. Okay, Let's go. Top row, Kavanaugh, Rapey McKavanaugh. Just, everybody watching this has read my 5-part series that I wrote with LB about why this guy is owned and should not be there. Kagan, please make her the Chief Justice. Okay. Gorsuch and Coney Barrett are, and Kavanaugh, all three of them put in there because of Leonard Leo. Leonard Leo, radical Catholic, runs the Federalist Society and the Judicial Crisis Network and this whole like web of weird, creepy, kind of depressing, neo-fascist, anti-democratic, dictatorial, Opus Dei tinged bullshit organizations. Gorsuch is one. Coney Barrett is one. The guy all the way on the left, who is that?
Kavanaugh.
No. On the bottom. Wait. Oh, that's Alito. Okay.
Yeah.
Alito and Clarence Thomas, okay, buddies with Leonard Leo. Again, all of these guys, radical Catholics, not regular Catholics, not lapsed Catholics like me. And I was confirmed as a Catholic, so I can say these people are all cuckoo pants, okay? The radical Catholics are cuckoo pants. I can say it because I'm Catholic. That's it.
Clarence Thomas, the wife, his wife, Ginny Thomas.
Whose wife
also
is one of the
arranged the
supporters of the
insurrection.
goddamn insurrection. Right. So that's who we're dealing with because they don't believe in democracy.
Yeah.
Roberts, put there by Leonard Leo, who was like 35 when he started doing this shit. This is a guy from a shitty high school in New Jersey who thinks he's God, okay? Who doesn't want anybody to know what crap high school in New Jersey he went to because he's fucking embarrassed. He wants everybody to think he's a Knight of Malta. This Leonard Leo, fucking loser, nerd, geek, awful, dictatorial jerk, okay?
But how do you really feel about him?
I hate his fucking guts. Breyer, it rhymes. Breyer, retire.
He really needs to. He
Retire.
really needs
Hashtag. Like, seriously, fucking yesterday. Have you read the goddamn news, you fucking selfish prick? Retire so we can put someone young there that maybe won't die so soon. Thank you. And Sotomayor, not a radical Catholic, but a Catholic, which means we have 7 out of the 9 Supreme Court justices are Catholic, which makes no goddamn sense because that does not in any way represent the population of the United States, which the Supreme Court should absolutely represent. Okay? It should absolutely represent. That's the thing that people need to know. This is not fair. These guys are supposed to be paragons of fairness. It ain't fair.
Well, the fastest thing we could do, although it has its own downside, is something that Professor Nico Bowie of Harvard Law School mentioned. And have you heard of this? Get rid of judicial review. They took the right to review legislation enacted by Congress. They said they had that right to decide its constitutionality, to construe its meaning. They gave themselves this right. What, with Marbury versus Madison? Congress could take that right away.
What is that? What is that? Sorry.
Whoa! What? You're going to go back to Marbury versus Madison? This is exciting stuff.
No. I want to know what judiciary review. What did you call it? Something review. I want to know what that is.
Judicial review.
Okay. Yes.
That's what. Okay. Judicial review is when someone can sue to tell and say to the Supreme Court, this piece of legislation, for example, violates this part of the Constitution. Okay. Right. And Nico Bowie, you should look at his testimony. Next, look at it, and maybe we could talk about it in the future. It's really brilliant. I mean, there's no reason why they have to have that. Congress could stop that. There's a lot Congress could do. But now your point, Zev, is, we can't even get rid of the filibuster. Good luck getting Kristen Sinema to get rid of judicial review. I think we need to pack the court. I also thought when I heard this this hearing on Wednesday, everyone's always saying what a disaster it was when Roosevelt tried to pack the court, but that's actually not true. Do you know this? I mean, have you heard this taken?
I don't know about
this. No.
So, this is like why are we been sold this lie? So in 1937, when he had this, he just won re-election in 36. In 37, Roosevelt gets Congress to introduce this legislation to expand the court. And his idea was for every justice that reaches a certain age or doesn't retire, he wanted to add 6 or something. It was kind of radical. But what happened is, wait. So even though this didn't happen, what happened? All of a sudden, how the Supreme Court was striking down all of his New Deal legislation? Well, what do you know? They started rubber stamping it. Not rubber stamping. Really? They started letting it go through.
Huh. So
and this is where
the threat. Okay.
He lost the battle, but he won the war, right? And this is the trouble. the trouble is people want to tell us the lie that those people in robes, and why do they wear robes? They might as well wear powdered wigs. What the fuck? Put on real clothes. You are not priests, but they're real people and they're making real decisions. It's not balls and strikes. And it's a lie.
Nope. Oh, you've got frozen again.
Look, Clarence Thomas needs to wear a robe because I don't think he's wearing pants. I think it's pretty clear.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to take a commercial break. On the other side of this, we're going to get to some other stuff because now what I've got is a visual of Clarence without pants, and that's all I got.
God.
Wait, Zev, real quick.
Yeah,
I think to get rid of judicial review, we just need to rename it critical race theory. That's it. And the Republicans.
Perfect. We'll be right back. Tonight's show is brought to you by Helix Sleep, and they have a special offer for narrative viewers. I've heard it from so many people. The one thing that's changed since January is their sleep. Not waking up worrying about what the president might have done or said or tweeted makes the world of a difference. I don't think I had a good solid night's sleep in 4 years. And it wasn't only the president. My 10-year-old mattress, which started life as a 12-inch foam mattress, had shrunk to an 8-inch mattress, and getting out of bed was often more of a slide than a bounce. It was time for a new mattress. Helix Sleep has a quiz that takes just 2 minutes to complete and matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. Why would you buy a mattress made for somebody else? Changing the course of a country can take a village. Changing the course of your sleep takes a quiz. Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/narrative. That's the way we spell narrative, N-A-R-A-T-I-V. That's helixsleep.com/narrative for up to $200 off and 2 free pillows. I think I have to re-record that ad because I don't know if people are sleeping as soundly as they were in January when I first recorded that. So we might need to refresh that. Maybe next time. So we've got a few minutes left. I want to talk about 2 things, if we could. One is the new social media platform that Donald Trump, I guess, has put out there. It's not really Donald Trump's yet. It's made by the guy named Guo. I don't know how to say his name. Here I go again, blanking on the
Chinese spy guy. Yeah.
The Chinese spy guy works with Steve Bannon. So they put out this new and your friend with the thumb guy, Jason Miller, because
he looks like a thumb that someone's drawn on. That's what he looks like. It's crazy.
He really does look like that. I mean, honestly, doesn't he look like that?
I mean, come on,
the thumb guy. So they've launched an alternative to Twitter called Getter, G-E-T-T-R.
Gutter. Get her done. Get her done.
Get her done. So it has a torch as a symbol. That was apparently this guy Guo came up with this idea of the torch, and now they have an ad. So we're going to take a quick look at the ad, and it looks like it's it looks like it's been made out by the Chinese Communist Party. But you be the judge. Here we go. It goes on like this for a while, and it's very heavy on the.
I like the bad Photoshop of the logo into the thing.
Yeah, right.
That's classic.
Looks like they made it for like $2. You get the virus truth. You get a lot of the virus truth on there, right? Because you want the virus truth, and you also get all this more virus truth about the COVID-19. I don't know. This looks. I don't know if it's hard to tell whether it's just a joke or a satire or whether it really is from the Chinese Communist Party acting as an front of the Chinese Communist Party.
I know we're joking about it, but seriously, this shit, there's something about it where it's designed to integrate with your Twitter. You know how certain apps do not download this fucking malware on your phone.
Not,
even as a joke.
Steal your followers.
Do not.
Yes. That's what it does is it takes all your followers. Now,
So, anyway, what I was saying is my Chinese isn't that good, but why is this in Chinese? Is this targeted for?
Well, it's obviously made by.
Because they're the real owners of this pasture.
Basically they're saying this is made in China, even though it's a social media platform for the president and his followers. It appears to be made in China. The former president has not decided whether he's going to join this yet. Although I hear by next week they're going to be offering money from the Himalayan currency of some sort, Bitcoin from the Himalayan I don't know, Himalayan Bitcoin, which is going to be pegged to the US dollars, and they'll be offering people to join their platform by using that. I came up with a whole new tagline for it, just because I care about them and I want to make sure they have a good tagline. Oh, you might not be able to read it for the full screen. But I called it, oh, you can't read it. Hang on one second. We'll try this here. One more time.
Oh my God, it is almost Gaslighter. You're right.
It is, because it looks like a torch, right?
Yeah.
It's the torch, and then the social for gaslighters. Okay, that's it. We have one more thing, but we could. Should we show this one guy from the insurrection who got caught, bashing up a whole lot of equipment at the insurrection, and these great social media trackers found him. Here's this picture of him doing all this terrible stuff to this audio and video equipment at the insurrection. You see that's him stomping on stuff and pulling stuff. Well, he was identified by the local media in his hometown, and this is what he had to say.
I'm a documentarian, and when as like you guys, when you guys hear of something, you guys show up as you do now and ask questions or record and see what happens. So that's what I was doing there.
So there are photos of you reportedly kind of stomping on camera equipment and stuff. Is that you in that picture the FBI is putting out?
I would not like to comment on that at this time, but I'm working everything out with the courts and whatnot, and that's that.
I'm a documentarian, guys. I'm a documentarian.
Oh my God, you haven't seen it? Oh, that was great.
No, I've seen it, but I still.
Thing. It's just perfect. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
That is why we.
Is he aware that he's not under oath, and he could just be like, "No, that's not me. What are you, crazy? I don't look. I have a tan. That guy, just fucking lie, dude.
Just put a shirt on. If you're going to be interviewed by your local TV station, wear a shirt.
I don't know if you got guns like that guy,
Oh yeah.
Biden can't take those guns.
That's a good note to leave it on. Jennifer, I'm going to screw up the name again because I've screwed up so much tonight, but Jennifer Taube, thank you very much for screwing it up.
It's cool. It's good.
It's Jennifer Taube.
Yes.
I got it right. Taube.
Yes.
There you go. The author of Big Dirty Money and this incredible piece that's in the Washington Monthly tonight, and you should go read it. I'm losing it. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. That's all I got. Good night, Greg. Good night, Jen. Have a good weekend. Happy 4th of July. Bye.
Narrative is funded by viewers like you. Support our independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative.